G'day guys, Rukshan here. Thanks for joining me for the news vlog. I hope you're having an awesome start to the weekend. I've got a few stories I want to share with you today, so let's jump right in. First up, it's this shooting that happened in Melbourne CBD yesterday, where protective services officers had to discharge their weapon and shoot an individual who was attacking them. But at the same time, there was another incident on the bridge as well. So I think a lot of this has to do with, for me personally, when I go to the city these days, a lot on public transport, especially on the tram system here. There's a lot of these junkies and people just zoned out, drugged out, and there's a lot of these kind of individuals walking around Melbourne these days. I think there is a bit of an issue going on in our city as it relates to this, and I think some of this kind of petty crime and these type of incidents must be related to this, in my opinion. Now, I haven't really seen any indication from the police besides the fact that these individuals seem to be mentally unstable. But let's have a read of this story and let me know what you think is happening in our city. Chaos after man shot, 4 injured in separate incidents on same Melbourne bridge at same time. A man has been shot and 4 have been injured in 2 separate incidents after a night of chaos in Melbourne CBD. The first incident unfolded inside a tram when a man allegedly tried to rob someone before exiting onto Princess Bridge at 5:30 p.m. Victoria Police alleged the man then assaulted 4 people with a glass bottle. They were all taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, thank God. You can see a bit of the incident unfolding there. Now, at that same time, a second incident broke out at the same time when a second man began threatening protective services officers at Princess Bridge. Victoria Police said the man was armed with broken glass when he was confronted the PSOs. 2 PSOs have deployed OC spray, which didn't appear to have any effect on this individual. 1 PSO discharged his firearm with the man being struck once. So the PSOs who were responding to the other incident had to confront this other individual who tried to attack them with this glass bottle. Now, this is happening more and more around our city. We're hearing more stories like this. And just from my personal experience of being around in the city, there are a lot of unhinged individuals. I think that there's some sort of crisis unfolding in our city. And at the same time, I brought up the point that our government, at least the local councils and the state government, are looking at ways to put these injecting rooms in the city as well, right? There was plans for one near this incident, near Flinders Street, near De Graves. Now they're saying it's near Burke Street. Whatever, we're putting this kind of in the heart of the city. You have these type of individuals already causing chaos, in my opinion. I think this is what's happening. And then you have police having to discharge their weapons in these highly densely populated areas where lots of people are traversing through. I think you're creating this recipe for disaster, for the decline of Melbourne to continue. And we're going to see a city that's maybe more like, parts of San Francisco or parts of California, parts of Vancouver, where you have a lot of these drugged up zombies walking around committing petty crimes and chaos in the streets. I hope it doesn't get to that, but I feel like this is the beginning of that happening, honestly. The next story I have, guys, is around the Lunar New Year. So happy Lunar New Year for those of you celebrating. A lot of my Asian friends and those of you who may be of Asian background watching that living in Australia. It's a very prominently celebrated event in Australia because the communities here, a lot of Asian communities, the big Chinese population here as well, but Vietnamese and other communities that celebrate Lunar New Year, which is all good and fine, and it's great that people celebrate their nations or their regions New Year, because there's different calendars and different ways of doing this. But there's a different focus from our politicians and government, public bodies, and a lot of institutions, for instance, in how they approach something like the Lunar New Year, as opposed to just a few weeks ago how they approached Australia Day. See, when it comes to the Lunar New Year, the Year of the Dragon, it's so much easier for our councils and our politicians to get involved in this, right? So this is one example. The city of Melbourne, they're here promoting, join us at the heart of Chinatown for the Chinese Lunar New Year Festival. Now, you look through their post for Australia Day celebrations, nothing, not even a mention. They had a post the day before, and then they didn't post anything for a couple of days after Australia Day. So that's the city of Melbourne. We have here Victoria Emergency Services, Happy Lunar New Year. I looked through their feed, nothing for Australia Day. And the most glaring one has been North Melbourne Football Club, who have shared Happy Lunar New Year to all Happy Lunar New Year to all who celebrate, wishing you a safe and healthy and a happy year ahead. Hashtag Kangas with a blue dragon. Now, this is all good and fine, but North Melbourne Football Club was a part of a group of clubs that put out a statement to change the date of Australia Day and pretty much professed that it's a day that should not be celebrated. And, they just kind of watered down the day as much as possible. But here they are celebrating the Lunar New Year. Let me know what your thoughts on this are. We also have members of our parliament making comments like this about the new year, and even speaking Mandarin, I believe.
Happy Lunar New Year.
Yes, it's very easy for our politicians to celebrate, I would say, foreign celebrations, right? Whether it's Lunar New Year, whether it's Diwali, whether it's Eid, all these celebrations, it's so easy for them. But for some reason, anything to do with Australia, it's very difficult. Now, the next story I have is around Barnaby Joyce. Now, Barnaby Joyce is a colourful character. He's a former deputy prime minister, and he's always finding himself in hot water for different types of reasons. Now, the latest one is that someone has filmed him lying on the ground on his phone, yelling into his phone and swearing while they're walking past in Canberra in the late hours of a Wednesday, I believe. And this has kind of gone viral with people making all types of assumptions about what is happening here. Most of the theories around what's going on is people saying he's drunk, he's passed out, he's on the ground, he's yelling. Like, that's what people are saying. And even other people like Lydia Thorpe, other senators, have jumped into this and said, well, the treatment of Barnaby Joyce over this has not been the same as how people talked about her when she was caught on film yelling in front of a strip club when allegedly she looked quite intoxicated at the time. I'm not sure for 100%, but she was yelling and swearing on film, and she got a lot of criticism from that, even from the Prime Minister at the time. And she's saying that, in Barnaby Joyce's instance, this type of criticism has not been leveled towards him. Now, whatever you think of this, a guy lying on the floor by himself, swearing into the phone when he's a bit drunk, it is a common sight in Australia, right? It is a common sight. Now, if he was yelling at other people, swearing at other people, then yes, as a politician, maybe it's problematic. And even if he was drunk and lying on the floor, yes, as a politician, that's not a good look. But his wife's father has come out, so his father-in-law has come out and said that there might be something more going on. And he was, the story is he was sitting on top of a pot plant. He slipped off it while he got some bad news on the phone, and he was just lying on the ground at that time, just, worried about that news. Now, you can read the story on the Daily Mail, where the father is quoted, I believe. Barnaby Joyce's father-in-law has addressed the video of the Nationals MP lying near the road while giving a possible explanation why the bizarre incident occurred. On Friday, Daily Mail published an exclusive video of the New England MP lying on the footpath at Lonsdale Street in Canberra suburb of Brandon on Wednesday at 11:26 p.m. The former Deputy Prime Minister could be heard muttering on the phone while flat on his back on the ground, including one outburst where he said, "Dead effing see you," that word. Sources told Daily Mail Australia and Nationals frontbenchers were sitting on the large pot plant having an animated phone conversation with his wife, Wiki Campion, when he fell off, rolled around on the ground, and continued on the phone conversation. Now, Peter Campion, father of Joyce's wife, Wiki Campion, said the former Deputy Prime Minister had received devastating message shortly before the incident. He had some very bad family news on the day. Mr. Campion told Daily Mail Australia on Saturday he had already lost a brother to cancer, and that's what you've got to begin with. He had some very bad similar news, which is not up to me to divulge, but some of the same scale, and has affected him deeply. So yeah, make of this story what you will. It's very possible what this gentleman is saying, that he received some bad news, and that shock he led him to fall on the ground, and he stayed on the ground talking on the phone to his wife during that time, and he was filmed by a passerby. And there is a bit of an issue here. If he was having some sort of episode or some sort of distress, that someone just film him walking past him without seeing if he is okay, especially because he's up there in his age and he's by himself lying on the ground. So yeah, interesting story. A bit of a little Australian political nonsense to end my Australian coverage with for now. This story, guys, is around Harvard University. That's right, Harvard University. We've talked about them with their plagiarism, right? So, they got a bad reputation now for being plagiarists at Harvard because their own director, or the top honcho lady at Harvard, what's her name, Claudine Gray, was caught out plagiarizing. But this one is to do with COVID-19 mandates. It turns out that Harvard University will still require all students and attendees that come to their university to be up to date with their COVID-19 vaccines, boosters. What are we up to now? The 10th booster? What are we up to? Let me read this article. Students at Harvard University will continue to be required to take the COVID-19 vaccine in order to register for the upcoming semester. The school has recently announced, joining 69 other schools around the country, that they still require the shot. Harvard requires all students who will be on campus to have some protection from COVID-19 through vaccination, read the statement posted by the school. This may be through initial primary series of COVID-19 vaccination or one or more of the most recent COVID-19 boosters. Students who fail to show approved documentation will be unable to sign up for classes, with the website warning that should they fail out of compliance at any time for any of the required immunizations, registration holds will be automatically applied. Now, I'm not going to get into the rest of this article with the comments from some experts who are saying that this is a horrendous decision that's being passed down, where these students are being literally coerced to keep their spot at Harvard or these other universities which are doing this in other schools. They have to be up to date with their boosters and COVID vaccines. So this whole generation of students who are going at the moment right now, they must submit. I'm not going to say any more on this, but yes, this kind of madness has not ended around the world. This one, guys, I'm just going to straight up read this story because it is insane. Let's just leave it at that. I'm just going to read it. I don't know if I'll be in breach or something even if I read this, but I'm just going to read it. Let's have a look. Transgender woman loses bid to sue ex for throwing out her surgically removed testicles. We're talking about my nuts. A transgender Michigan woman who sued her ex-boyfriend for discarding her surgically removed testicles had her case tossed out by a judge, who also rejected the ex-counterclaim for being humiliated by the case. Brianna Kingsley, 40, last year filed a small claims petition alleging her ex, William, 37, retains possession of my surgically extracted testicles, preserved in a mason jar kept in the fridge next to the eggs. The Pontiac resident demanded the immediate return of a human remains specimen in a handwritten affidavit, in addition to $6,500 in damages. Am I meant to be laughing reading this? I feel bad in a way. We're talking about my nuts. I wanted them in my fridge, not his. Kingsley told a court hearing the damages were the loss of these nuts. Meanwhile, said he'd already tossed out the testicles and filed a counterclaim for the same amount, claiming he'd been humiliated by coverage of the Nutty case by worldwide news outlets. But District Judge Jeremy Bowie denied both their claims, calling the whole matter a wash during a contentious hearing Wednesday, adding that his decision can't be appealed, according to the outlet. I'm not going to read any more, but you can go read this article. That's the couple there, and this is the title of the story. I don't know. I don't know what's happening in our world anymore. Now, speaking about this beautiful weather that we're having in Melbourne right now and around the country, we are in summer, right? We are in summer, but there's another heat wave coming. This time, West Australians prepare for extreme heat wave warnings issued. West Australia will swelter through an extreme heat wave with some areas tipped to reach close to 50 degrees Celsius. The Bureau of Meteorology issued a heat wave warning ahead of the weekend, with Perth preparing for a top of 41 degrees on Friday and Saturday. Meanwhile, Gascoyne Junction is forecast to reach about 46 degrees on Friday and Saturday before peaking at 48 degrees on Tuesday. The severe heat wave warning is in place for Kimberley, Gascoyne, Central West, Lower West, Southwest, South Coastal, and Great Southern districts. Now, this isn't a weather report, but I just wanted to show you these new maps that we're seeing. Is it new? I don't know if it's new because I think it's been happening for a while, but I'm just noticing it more. Every time I see a weather map now, we used to have heat shown in either yellow or like a red, even, right? This extreme heat. It's really hot. Now I'm seeing a lot of black and purple, and apparently black and purple signifies even more extreme than that. So a lot of the weather maps that we're seeing on television now, they're defaulting to this purple color. Have you noticed this? Oh, is it just me? Am I just look on X too much and reading these kind of things and seeing these type of video clips being shared around? But there is so many videos now with these new weather stations and news channels sharing news data about weather with the color purple. Extremely purple weather maps. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. I thought that was interesting. Now, the next story I have, guys, is on the Israel-Gaza conflict. This is the most recent update, and of course, it keeps on going on, this conflict. And I know some people take offense at that word even being used, but I'm reporting it in a very neutral stance, just sharing my views and opinions on the news that is coming out. So Israel-Gaza war, Netanyahu orders military to plan evacuation from Rafah. Now, Rafah is that border town with Egypt, not Mexico, as Biden mistakenly said yesterday. It's the border town with Egypt, and it's where a lot of the Gazan population was told to head towards for their safety. That's a humanitarian area, pretty much. But now the Israeli Prime Minister has turned his sights on that area as well, saying that these Hamas militants, rebels, terrorists, whatever you designate them as, are hiding out in those areas as well, and they need to be flushed out. So let me read this article. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered the military to prepare to evacuate civilians from the southern Gazan city of Rafah ahead of an expanded offensive against Hamas. Some 1.5 million Palestinians are in Rafah to seek refuge from Israeli combat operations in the rest of Gaza. The US has warned Israel an invasion of Rafah would be a disaster, while the EU and the UN both expressed concern. Aid groups say it's not possible to evacuate everyone from the city. Mr. Netanyahu told military and security officials to submit to cabinet combined plan for evacuating the population and destroying the battalions of Hamas, his office said on Friday. It is impossible to achieve the goal of the war without eliminating Hamas, and by leaving 4 Hamas battalions in Rafah. On the contrary, it is clear that intensive activity in Rafah requires that civilians evacuate the areas of combat, the statement added. Now, this is going to get a lot of people worked up in terms of people who are worried about the situation for the civilian populations in Gaza at the moment. More so for the reason that everyone has been condensed into that Rafah area, and this evacuation that they're planning, how successful that would be is very hard to tell. And I understand the concerns of many, and we're having a lot of leaders around the world express concerns around this as well. Now, if you're supporting the Israeli cause and if you're supporting the military intervention that Israel is currently doing, their argument is the fact that within that region and within where those the refugee population, whatever you want to call it, the people seeking refuge are, there is these battalions of Hamas fighters seeking refuge there also, and using people as human shields and using these buildings as places to still plan their operations and continue on. And there's these 4 battalions that they want to take out. Let me know your thoughts on this escalation. We also had to Israel recently Javier Milei, the recently elected president of Argentina. He made a visit to Israel, and it was a very friendly visit. He was at the Western Wall. He's been criticized widely by many people that actually supported him for expressing a lot of support for Israel. Actually, here he is at the Western Wall, hugging and crying. Also, we've had him say that they will move the embassy to Jerusalem as well, the Argentinian embassy. So Javier Milei, he was very popular not that long ago, like a couple of weeks ago when he was elected, especially with a lot of conservatives and right-leaning people. And now he's, finding himself in this mix of individuals that are so-called supporters of Zionists or globalism and these kind of things that people are saying. I just brought it up because I thought it was a very interesting transition that's happened over the last maybe 2 weeks, from him being this, held up very highly to now being denounced by many of the people that originally supported him. Let me know your thoughts on Javier. Do you still believe he is a good leader for Argentina, and do you still believe that he is after the globalists after witnessing these scenes? Now, I still think his policies and the way that he's going about things in his own country is what needs to be done, and he will be a good leader. That is my opinion based on what I'm seeing at the moment. But I understand how these type of scenes, for people who are very much against what Israel is doing right now, for them to see someone like this expressing this kind of solidarity with Israel would be problematic for them. And the last story, guys, to round off all of this is an Australian slash international story, and that is Kanye West is planning a potential tour in Australia. Maybe, but the Premier of Victoria, Jacinta Allen, says that he would not be welcome for his offensive comments. Let's have a read of this. Victorian Premier Jacinta Allen has slammed Kanye West and said that the rapper will not be welcomed in the state. Addressing the 46-year-old hip-hop artist proposed to a plan for 2025, the Premier expressed her skepticism about a Melbourne show. Last year, rumors circulated that West intended to visit Melbourne to meet the family of his wife, Bianca Censori, the one that he parades around next to him, and, all types of strange fashion choices that they make together. However, doubts arose regarding his ability to obtain a visa to enter Australia after his slew of anti-Semitic remarks. This individual has a long history of not just making offensive comments, but making deeply anti-Semitic ones as well, Premier Allen said. The individual and those comments have no place in Victoria. Really, really, Premier, I've seen a lot of interesting comments being made by Australians, Australian leaders, members of the Greens Party, all types of people, really, that are very similar to the type of comments that Kanye West made in relation to the control of the music industry in the US. Right? I've seen very similar comments being made widely, even within houses of parliament. Given the power of visas sits with the federal government, I'm not going to cut across the decision making, she said. West has a documented history of anti-Semitism and last year lost out on several partnership deals after going on an explosive anti-Semitic rant. I could probably call out a whole heap of other people who have gone on very similar rants to Kanye West all around Australia and during a lot of the protests that we've seen in our country, members of our own community, and even some of the scenes that we saw at the Opera House and so on. So really, do we not accept that kind of thing in this country? I feel like a lot of the political class and a lot of people are having difficulty addressing that type of issue and situation in Australia. So it'll be interesting to see if Kanye West is granted a visa and if he does want to do a tour of Australia. It's quite interesting. He's a very interesting artist. I listen to a lot of his music, actually. He's one of my more preferred artists in terms of music and songs. I don't follow him too closely for his worldviews and all this kind of stuff, but he's a bit of an interesting individual in my opinion. Anyway, guys, that is the show for today. I hope you've enjoyed this news vlog. If you have any stories that you think I should cover, please drop it in the comments. And as always, if you're enjoying my videos, consider subscribing, hit that notification bell. You can also find me on X, Instagram, Facebook, Rumble, Odyssey at The Real Rukshan, or at my website at www.realrukshan.com. See you guys tomorrow.